Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and Prez. This episode 430. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Prez, that is @_Presidente on Twitter. Prez, how are you doing on this wonderful Thursday afternoon, evening?
I'm doing all right. It's rainy and windy here in DC. Turbulent pre-hurricane weather. Or I guess it's not technically I think it's a tropical storm now. It's still really dangerous, so if you're in the path of tropical storm Helen or Helene or whatever it is, please be careful out there.
Don't have to worry about that in New York, really, because tropical storms don't really end up being much of a storm by the time they get up here. Just a lot of rain. Nothing else. All right. But anyways, I don't think anybody cares about that. Before we get started, I do have to make a few announcements. First, we get Strickland has an Instagram. Check that out. We're posting all kinds of new content on there. The Strickland also has a YouTube channel where you maybe watch this podcast. If you haven't done so already, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. That'd be a huge help to us. Strickland also has merch, which you can find on our website at www.strict.land. There's a link that'll take you to the merchandise store, and you can find all kinds of cool stuff on there, like t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it, we've got it. Strickland also has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland's podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to Takes from Obvious Bozos, a podcast that is hosted by Andrew Steele, a.k.a. Doug, along with Zach Blatter, and you get access to the Strickland Discord with Conversation Never Stops. So there are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod, where I rant and rave about the next year more. You also get access to one of our premium articles by Matthew Marino, one of the best in the business. And now you get access to Strictly NFL, which, you guessed it, is a podcast about the NFL that is hosted by Konstantin Metrikos and Desmond Novak. Further tiers is a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. This comes with a variety of additional benefits, like links to pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially hosting a podcast, as long as yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. None of this would be possible without you. And none of this would be possible without Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get into the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. All right, so the Knicks, I'm sure they knew before this, but we found out this week that Mitchell Robinson will not be ready for the start of the season, and in fact is likely only to return sometime in December or January. Obviously, the Knicks have lost Isaiah Hartenstein in free agency, and now with Mitchell Robinson out, the center rotation is looking awfully thin. They have Precious Achiuwa, they have Jericho Sims, and they have Ariel Hukporti, not to be forgotten, on a 2-way contract. Look, I guess the first thing, how worried are you about how this could potentially affect the Knicks at the start of the season? And I guess where are you at with that?
A couple things. The first thing, I forget if I talked about it before on the pod, but I kind of suspected this was going to happen, and that is because you saw every other Knick kind of out there doing stuff for the Knicks, like Deuce at West Virginia, Deuce doing a signing here, the Roommates podcast, Julius Randle opening schools, and you just didn't see Mitch much of anywhere. And the fact that I could puzzle that out means Knicks brass definitely puzzled that out. And, at a 30,000 foot level, I have enough confidence in this front office to say that if their plan is to roll with smaller ball and explore the trade market, as it seems, I tend to think they have earned the benefit of the doubt because they're really smart and they've made a lot of good decisions. That being said, it's going to be experimentation, and sometimes it's going to look really good, and sometimes it's going to look clunky at first. And I think that means maybe over the course of, I don't know, how many games do you think they play by New Year's Day? Usually it's like 20 something ish.
I don't know.
I have no idea either. My memory of the NBA calendar is hazy. Anyway, I think say it's like 25 games or something. I think they might be giving up like a game or two just due to experimentation, which is fine. I think most teams in the NBA, even contenders, tend to do that because you have to continuously adapt in this league as other teams change and get better and stuff like that. The Knicks just historically haven't done much of that except for when their hand is forced. And guess what? Their hand is forced. So I think you'll see more experimenting. You know, obviously Precious is the first center in the depth chart. Randall's arguably the second. Actually, it's probably not even arguable anymore. He's definitely the second. Sims still exists as a basketball player on the Knicks. So I think you'll see different configurations. I don't think they'll make an early trade to try to address this. I think they want to kind of see how this looks with the offense. I know me and you were talking, Shwin, like Precious is interesting because individually his stats are kind of terrible just on the whole. Like he's not particularly good at any type of offense. He's very good on the boards and his, you know, he gets blocks, but his defensive metrics are like, however much you take that for. But he was in some good lineups, and it was a lot of weird small samples in the last 40 games of the season before the playoffs, just because of all the injuries. And Precious was playing the 4, and he was playing the 5, and he was playing with other centers, and he was playing, you know, power forward on offense, and there was a lot of weird shit going on. And it doesn't excuse his poor individual numbers, but the fact that there were stretches where it looked like it would work, there was enough there to justify seeing what you got going into this season. So that's kind of where I'm at as well. I think, you know, they should see what it looks like. I don't know if a Precious Julius OG front court, like, is that going to be a switchy front court? Are they going to stick with their shallow drop principles that they did last year? Or are they just going to switch way more, especially with McCall now, right? Like, there's a lot of ways this could go schematically with Precious and with Randall at the 5. So that's the first thing. I think there's still a lot in the how that we don't know. And then the second thing is this is going to free up minutes for Hart and Dante and Deuce just by having Julius play more at the 5. And I think that is underrated as a effect of this because, you know, we talked about this constantly before the Knicks traded for Bridges, but like Dante was better than him last year. Dante's really fucking good. Josh Hart is really good, albeit weird. Deuce is really good. He took a step forward in the playoffs. So like there's the replacement of the minutes you can't imagine that only like center to center. It also is imagining like you're actually increasing your overall shooting for 48 minutes team wide by having Mitch out, not just by having Precious fake spacing or Randall at the 5. It's also the other guys shooting more and Hart playing more and stuff like that. And I don't know, it'll like there's a possibility that much offense alone versus 2/3 of the league is honestly probably gonna blow teams out of the water versus very good teams who in the regular season decide we're going to be playoff disciplined and just like ignore Precious, you know, or like play really big and we got a big player and we can try to like, you know, isolate on McCall with the stronger guy because there's whatever, we have the strength advantage, even though arguably they don't because we still have Randall and OG. You know, there's ways that other teams can take advantage of it, but I think in a regular season, it's probably harder than people think to take advantage of a weakness like that on a Tibbs team. So wins and losses, maybe it changes things a little bit early on, but I think in the experimentation on offense, there's a good chance they could run into wins that make up for that as well, that they may otherwise have not gotten. So that's all a long way of saying it's unpredictable. And I'm not as worried as I thought I would be.
Yeah.
What about you?
I would probably say that I don't. I'm just kind of over Mitch, man. He's always hurt. He's a really good player. We know that. He's always hurt. He's unreliable. At this point, I think you just have to view him as a part-time player and somebody that cannot be part of your long-term future because he's unreliable. And unreliable players, in terms of fitness, I mean, it's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. The best ability is availability. And if you're not available, then, who cares how good you are? Like, Kawhi Leonard's fucking awesome, dude. Guess what? He's never available for the Clippers, which is why that contract and that trade has been basically a failure and a disaster for them. And Mitchell Robinson, obviously not the same level of investment that the Clippers have made in Kawhi Leonard, but like he's never available. So at this point, like this was going to happen at some point. It was going to happen at some point this season, whether it was the start of the season, middle of the season, end of the season, I don't know, but it was going to happen. And I'm also well aware that when he comes back, he's going to fucking suck for the first 15, 20 games because that's just how it works with him. He's going to suck, and then he's going to play really well. And we just have to hope that we get lucky and he's healthy for as long as we need him to be, hopefully all the way through June, and we win a championship. That would be great. But there's nothing in his history in the recent past that gives me any fucking belief that's going to happen. So, it is what it is. They have, I don't want to say they've made their bed with this, but they are well aware of everything that is involved with Mitchell Robinson. And while they might have been, I don't want to say, while they may have been disappointed in how long this recovery is going to take, I doubt that they were unprepared for this possibility. And I think that's exactly why you've heard smoke all summer and even in the last couple of weeks about
no chance they were
interest
unprepared.
in interest in centers. So setting that aside, I'm not that concerned about it. Like, I'm sure there are matchups where, Precious isn't the biggest guy and Jericho Sims is bad and whatever, where that stuff is going to burn you. But I personally kind of like the Precious. I've been consistent with this. I thought the Precious at the 5 when he plays with OG and Randall, like I thought that look was pretty interesting when we got to look at it in January. It's a pretty small sample, but the data was pretty good in that. And I think he's fine with Randall. Like, I think that they're fine together. I think they have an offensive, if the offense can work with fucking Mitchell Robinson at the 5 and next to Julius Randle, I feel fine with Precious Chu at the 5 next to Julius Randle, even if he's not the same level of offensive rebounding,
He's still a really good offensive rebounder.
Yeah, he's not the same force that Mitchell Robinson is, but he also can actually play basketball offensively in a way that Mitchell Robinson cannot, in terms of dribbling the basketball and doing things with any level of skill on the perimeter. But, he's shown some passing chops in the past. Not saying he's going to be, Jokic or something, but it would not surprise me if, he puts up maybe similar assist rates to what we saw of Isaiah Hartenstein the last couple of years in New York. That would not totally shock me. And I think defensively, as long as he's at the 5, whatever you want to call it, he's not the 5, OG's the 5, whatever. If he is not wholly defending at the 4, I've been pretty impressed with him during his time in New York. We'll see if that holds up in more consistent burn in a starting lineup, whatever. That's that. The other part of it is like, hey man, Okay, Mitch Robinson's out. That sucks. Again, that's something that I think all of us expected to happen at some point during the season. Probably not for this long. By the way, I tallied up. If Mitch doesn't come back until the start of January, the first game of January, he'll have missed 36 games. If he comes at the end of January or after January is done, that would be 51 games. So pretty significant chunk of time. Again, it is what it is. At this point, I am fairly confident the Knicks are not viewing him as part of their future, and I think that they will be looking to upgrade that spot as soon as possible with somebody they do feel can be a long-term part of the future. Maybe that ends up being Precious Chua. We will see. We'll have to see how this all works out. But I am encouraged by what we saw of Precious with OG and Randall, and Precious with Randall specifically. I think those guys will be fine playing together. And hey, guess what? Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, earn your fucking paycheck. I'm sorry. That's how this goes. You are elite two-way defensive wings. Fucking show me. Let's see it. This is what you do, right? Okay. Then let's see that. Let's see that happen. Josh Hart. Hey, guess what? I thought his defense slipped in a pretty significant way last year. I'm not going to lie. And I understand why. His workload was crazy. What we were asking of him was a lot. So I'm fully understanding of that. But I thought his brain farts throughout the playoffs on defense, especially at the start of games, was extremely infuriating for me. But time to lock back in on that end. DiVincenzo, I said DiVincenzo then Dante. DiVincenzo, Deuce. Between those five guys, it's five pretty good to upper echelon elite level of perimeter defenders you have. And Precious Chua, I think, has shown that he has, at least when he hits his best level on defense, it's a very high level. He can be a really, really good defense player. There is enough here for this team to still be a good defensive team. Maybe not elite. They're definitely not going to be as good as they can be when Mitch is healthy, but they have enough to be good. And your offense should still be very fucking good. You still have Jalen Brunson. You still have all kinds of fucking snipers all up and down this roster. You've got Julius Randle, who, again, I know that the Knicks were able to survive and at times thrive in his absence. Completely reject the idea that they were better off without him. I think that doesn't even make sense statistically. And look, we talked about it pretty briefly last time we potted, but they took the end of the bench spots more seriously than they have in the past. And one of the things that came out after they signed Marcus Morris was that they kind of liked his ability to potentially play, not just the 4, but also some small ball 5. Okay. If these are the things we're being told, hey, they like the fact that Morris can play small ball 5. Hey, Tom Thibodeau is saying Randall can play 10 to 15 minutes at the 5. With all other talent you have on this roster, let Mitch take his time. Let him take his time. I think part of the reason he got re-injured last year, on top of Joel Embiid being a fucking piece of shit, is that he rushed back from his injury for the team. He did that for the team. I want to be very clear. I was kind of caustic at the start of this talking on Mitch, but I don't have anything against Mitch. I think Mitch has been a really good Knick. I think he's been a guy who's willing to put his body on the line for the team, and I respect all that. And he did that last year, and I think that actually cost him. I think that is a reason why he got re-injured. But this team should still be good enough to win a lot of games without him, adjust, add, kind of different, add different pivots that they did not have in past seasons potentially with their flexibility, their lineup flexibility, and let him take his time, get him right before he gets back fully 100%, so that, whatever chance we have of this team winning a championship and Mitchell Robinson being a part of that and him lasting through however long, how long that does take, right? From whenever he returns through the end of June, let's give that the best possibility that we can. And I think they will do that. I think they'll be cautious with him. And I think that they have options. And also, look, I got to say, I saw a lot of there is one fantasy, center trade that I saw that I want to talk about. But most of the stuff I've seen, I'm just guys, I think if they were going to do some big swing on a center that they could that they had a deal lined up to do, it would have been done already. I think they know what the market is for a lot of centers. I think they did that so that, hey, if we do need to pull the trigger on a deal at some point, we'll have a baseline to work from, so we're not working from scratch. And like, look, honestly, I'll be completely honest with you. I don't see them making some huge move for a center at any point. Like, I think the type of move you're going to see will be like, oh, we'll trade a couple of veteran minimums contracts, which can be aggregated after December 15th, I believe, the veteran minimums. They can't right now. We're going to aggregate 2 of those, and we're going to trade a couple of seconds with, and trade those things together for Nick Richards. Like, that is honestly what I think will be the most likely guy they trade for in season. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe they do have a big move up their sleeve for a guy like Robert Williams, who himself is not exactly a paragon of health. But yeah, like I'm not that worried about them surviving the initial part of the season. I am worried about Mitch's health, his dependability to close the season, from when he comes back through the end of the regular season into the playoffs, and hopefully lasting as long as we want to go. I have a lot of questions and concerns about that, but I'm not concerned about this team. I think they still have a lot of potential. And honestly, I don't want to say it's a blessing in disguise because you're never rooting for a guy to get hurt, but like, I think there's value that
there's a silver lining.
Yeah, there's a value to what they're going to have to do to survive in an absence that they probably would not tap into nearly enough, if at all, if he was healthy. And if Hartenstein was back. I mean, if we had kept Hartenstein and Mitch was out, first of all, we wouldn't even be talking about this. We'd be like, whatever, dude, take your time. But like, because you
Hartenstein's evil, so now we're talking about it.